Welcome to the Profit Answer Man, Eric Brotman. It's great to have you join us today.
Rocky, it's good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Excited for our conversation. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your business?
Yeah, I have been a financial advisor for a little over 3 decades. It's hard to believe how fast that happened. I'm the CEO of BFG Financial Advisors in suburban Maryland. Also the president of Brotman Consulting Group and Brotman Media Group. I'm working a lot right now and in the throes of some transitions that I know we're going to talk about today, and looking forward to it.
As am I. So you are currently
Mm-hmm.
stepping out and you're not retiring, you're graduating, right?
Correct. 100%. Retirement's a dirty word in my book. No one should do it. It's not good for you. I am going to graduate. And, it's exciting because the difference between retirement and graduation is more than just a word. It's a mindset. Because to retire is to disappear, retreat. Retirement to me sounds like shuffleboard and daytime TV. That's not my plan. Graduation sounds like finding the next big challenge for our lives and the next exciting chapter in our lives. And I'm at a very cool tipping point in my life, both personally and professionally, and trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. And that's been something we've worked with clients to figure out for 30 plus years. And now that it's my turn, it's hitting home literally in a very different way. I'm sort of learning what it means to explore a new job, arguably for the first time in my adult life.
And I have noticed this with most entrepreneurs, they call themselves serial entrepreneurs and they're just graduating up to the next business and the next level that are there. And so that's kind of what our talk is about today, is succession planning, exit planning. I think a lot of business owners at some point always want to know what's next, whether they choose to or not. A lot of times on this podcast, we have talked about always being exit ready, because an exit ready company is a fun company and it's a profitable company. And it's one that you don't necessarily want to exit, but being exit ready is always a great way to be ready for that. So as you're going through your changes, like what is succession planning? What does that strategy look like for you?
For me, succession planning is a continuum. So I started my succession plan when I was 38 years old. 15 years ago, I started building a team that could ultimately be part of an internal succession plan. And it's coming to fruition now. I was the founder of the company. I owned all the shares, and that meant nothing for the first several years, as many entrepreneurs can attest. But at this point, we've grown to a pretty good size organization. I own 58% of the company. There are 6 other shareholders here and a few others waiting in the wings. And I'll be able to sell internally over a period of time rather than having private equity come and gobble us up and change our culture and change our everything. So I know that's an exit strategy that works for some. I know it could probably be the most lucrative exit for me, but it's not the one that's going to bring me joy or peace at the end of the day. And I really want this company to live long beyond me. And frankly, I want to stay involved just in a very different role for as long as they'll have me. We'll see. I'm going to have a new boss. It's exciting.
So what is your new role going to be?
So I'm going to be stepping into a chairman of the board role, which we are still working on defining at this time. I'm going to continue to run our advisory board. I'm going to be responsible for business development and growth initiatives, finding M&A opportunities in the financial advisory space, doing a fair amount of consulting with other firms, and continuing to do media and brand work for the company so that we're growing. What I'm giving up in doing that is a lot of the administrative, some of the managerial things, and giving up the day-to-day financial advising that I've been doing my entire adult life. We've got a team of six lead advisors, a total of 10 CFPs here in the office, and they do such a great job technically and relationally, and that's what they want to do, and they're excited to do it, and they're ready for it. And I'm exiting stage left while I'm still very much able to help them and be involved.
Would it be safe to say you're getting rid of the stuff you don't like doing and just going towards the stuff you like doing, or are you still going to have some of those bothersome things on your plate?
I don't know yet. You'll have to check back with me in 2026. I think it's not about the things I don't like doing. It's about the things that I've been doing for so long that they're less exciting to me now. It's not that I don't like it. I think I'm good at it, and I certainly want to stay in the know. But I think anytime you do something for so long that it becomes a little bit rote, it's better to find people enthusiastic and excited with an enormous amount of energy to do those things, and to find things that provide you with as much energy. And so I created something for myself that I now use with consulting clients called the Joy Revenue Matrix. And it's a very simple 4-box matrix where one axis is joy and one is revenue. and you write down the things that you do professionally, and you write down the things that bring you joy and make you money, and the things that bring you joy and don't make you money. Then you things that don't bring you joy but make you money, and things that don't do either one. And at the end of that exercise, you can figure out where you should be spending your time, what you should be delegating, what you should be reserving time for, and what you should try and stop doing entirely and not even delegate, just stop it. And if you can do that, and I've been doing that now for the last 3 years pretty successfully. That's been an initiative that I've taken pretty seriously, and now I'm sharing it with other people because it's so simple and it works.
It's one of the things that we do with our clients is the loves and drains. What do you love doing?
Yeah.
What drains you? And that's one part. And then the other part is, are you doing your highest and most valuable work? And so if you're overworked, what is it that you're doing that isn't really generating revenue or that somebody else could do for a fraction of what your value is? And then you get rid of those. So I tend to spend my time at the top right of your chart. I do the things I love that bring me joy and that only I can do. And as much as I can get off of my plate that I don't like, I get rid of. I will say, I think the only thing left on there is bookkeeping. And it's my bookkeeping. And I do it so I can feel my client's pain of having to do a QBO. And so I know, and I'm up to date at least when I got to go in there and deal with some stuff. I'm like, oh, this is why you're having a problem. I feel your pain, and here's how you fix it.
That's kind of like a dentist who gives himself a root canal so he knows what his patients are experiencing. Why would you do that to yourself?
You know, do you want to know why most doctors have such bedside manner? Because they haven't been their own patient.
Well,
See?
you're absolutely right. And so it's funny because I have a financial advisor. I've been doing this my whole life. But when my wife and I sit down, we sit down with a different advisor within our firm because I want to take off my advisor hat, put on my husband hat and my father hat and my human hat, and be able to be more passionately involved with it than I am professionally, where you try to be dispassionate and objective. Well, now I got my own self on the sleeve a little bit. And so I do want to know what it feels like to be a client of our firm because I'm certainly suggesting it to other people all the time.
The reality is, it doesn't take that long every month. So it's not a big deal. It's my 1 hour of penance. How is that?
You know, I guess it beats Hail Marys and Our Father. So yeah, that's fine. Do that.
Do that.
Yeah.
As you've worked with people and as you look at succession planning, do most people struggle in this space?
Wow, there's a couple of sticking points. And the first one is head trash and ego. I mean, there's a sense, I think, that a lot of people feel like nobody can do it like I can do it. No one will do it as well as I will. No one will do it the way and as a result of that, you wind up doing everything yourself and you don't learn to delegate and you don't build a team and you don't trust people. And then you are the kind of human who will die at your desk and not in a pretty way usually. On the other hand, another sticking point is just finding the team internally that has both the resources and the gumption to do this. I mean, sometimes you have employees or coworkers or even junior partners who don't have the stomach for borrowing money and buying the company and doing the things that you have to do when you're the primary owner. And so the first piece is figuring out that you're not the smartest guy in the room. I knew that very early on. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. You have to surround yourself with people who have all kinds of incredible talents that aren't your own and get out of their way. And then you have to find a way to make it affordable. Because if you don't make it affordable, it doesn't matter what. You could have a whole team of people who can't wait to do this, and then it comes to writing a check, and that check is not going to work. So I think the two stumbling blocks, the two are, number one, our own egos, we get in our own way, and then we don't make this affordable, or we're not patient enough to do it. I mentioned I started selling really early. I started selling before it was ripe. And I liken that to a farmer who sells watermelons on the vine before they're fully grown. Like, why would you sell them before they're fully grown? You can get more per pound, yada, yada. But the fact is you've already made the sale. You've already got somebody. They'll come pick it up when they're ready. And I actually think there's some pros to that in business, is that if you can find those willing buyers and start them on that track early, you don't wake up one day in your 50s or 60s or 70s and say, oh my gosh, now what do I do? I've got this huge asset that I can't monetize. I can't stop working. I'm stuck doing this myself, or I'm with people who can't buy it, and I don't want to just close up shop and cost all them their jobs and everything else. So I think you have to start early and you have to get over yourself, for lack of a better word.
You do. And honestly, I think that the biggest shift that I have noticed in the last few years also is talking about the ego and finding better people is fractional help. Like you can get different people to come in and be somewhat committed in the company on a fractional basis. So you get top quality at a very reasonable price, which is kind of different than what you're talking about. You're talking about your employees kind of coming in and taking over. But it does allow you the thinking time to be able to work on some of this other stuff. Because I think most business owners are running so much, they don't have the time to slow down and to think and say, how do I do this? And how do I carve out some time from me so that I can work on these other parts of the business?
It's also usually pretty wise not to do that by yourself. I mean, it's great to have time for introspection and thinking, and I don't downplay that. I think there's a lot to that. But trying to make decisions by committee instead, and trying to have a larger tent where people can participate in focus groups or on projects or on committees or on various task forces or whatever it is, where you can get 3 or 4 or 5 people excited about a project and they can really have meaningful input. Number one, you're now taking time to do the thinking, but you're not doing it by yourself. You're getting perspectives that you might miss. You know, writers rather can't edit their own work. They can't, because your brain sees what you meant to write, not what you wrote. It's bizarre, but you're seeing words that aren't there. You can't edit your own work. And, you know, in a lot of ways, you can't do your own. I would say you shouldn't be doing, your CPA shouldn't be doing their own taxes, because you need somebody else to look at it, because they're going to see it in a different way than you are. And it's very, very valuable, no matter what business you're in, I think, to get other professional opinions and have that kind of consortium.
Yeah, when I write, I put it down and I come back 2 weeks later, because by then I forgot what I wrote and what I meant to say. And then I can reread it and go, let me fix this a little bit. Now, that's not a final edit, but
Right.
I realize how much I messed up on the first round.
But you got it out there. I mean, the first draft is always the hardest. It's the brain dump. And then you have to sort of tweak and figure it out. And, you know, like you, I love to write, and I have written 3 books, and I do a lot of white papers and a lot of other types of writing, professional writing. And, you know, I like to communicate in that way. But I definitely, editing my own work is tough, because I'll look at it and go, my gosh, I'm quite certain this is perfect. And of course it's not. It's just not.
AI has shown me that it's not even close, and it helps me to refine, but then, you know, AI thinks what it wrote is great, and I realize that it's hallucinating again, so I have to fix that. But, you know, it's a back and forth.
You know, I've never used AI in my writing. I know a lot of people do. I've never done it, partly because I consider that part of my value add is my own creativity in that space. But I think there's something to be said for having some help with drafting or organizing or outlining or other things. There's no doubt that it can help. I haven't gone there yet. I think mostly that's stubborn pride on my part too, because no computer can write like I can. I'm sure of it.
And see, I think this is where people get AI wrong. What they do is they sit down and say, AI, write me a piece on this. Well, then it's not your voice. If you sit down and you say, AI, here are my points, here are my things. By the way, here's how I write. Here's my last 15 articles. I want you to organize this and set me up in the way that I write, with my thoughts here on this particular topic. And is there anything missing? Go ahead and let me know. And so it becomes a conversation first, then the writing, and then you get it back and you go, AI just doesn't know what it's doing. But that whole process took 15 or 20 minutes versus an hour or 2 hours. And now you can really, for me, 0 to 1 is really hard. 1 to 100, bam, I can do that easy. So this is my 0 to 1 kind of.
Okay.
With AI, it becomes 0 to 20, maybe 0 to 50, depending on what I'm doing.
Okay. Well, listen, the technology exists, and it's only going to get better and more profound. I don't know how much I want to integrate that into the things that I do that are creative. Things that I do that are routine, absolutely, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
But things that I do that are creative, I'm hesitating, mostly because once you're in your 50s, you hesitate with new technology. You know, when I was a kid, I could program the VCR and my dad couldn't, and that's just the way it was. And it's okay.
I'm still a tech nerd.
Okay. Well, so, then we differ. I'm a tech breaker.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm a tech nerd.
Oh, dear Lord. I've had IT departments tell me, we have never seen anyone do what you just did. I create new ways to break things.
Oh, see, when my kid, actually, I was just talking to my son. I'm like, dude, we still have a ton of PCs lying around here. Let's create a LAN party. Have your friends come over and we can do some old school gaming.
Well, okay. That sounds like fun.
It
Gaming I
is.
can do, but once it comes to real work, forget it.
All right, we're way off track. Exit strategy.
Yeah.
As you look to do this within your business, what are some of the roadblocks, hindrances, kind of where you don't have necessarily that internal succession going on?
If you don't have the right internal succession, then you absolutely have to start to make yourself, as you put it, sort of sale ready. And that means getting some advice, some legal, some tax, some business advice, and putting together, sort of putting the lifeboats on the Titanic, not because you're expecting to hit an iceberg, but because you're setting sail for the unknown anyway. And having something that will allow you to package and sell without it being under duress, without it being a fire sale, makes a huge difference. You don't want to wait until the nth hour to do a transaction. You want to sell while things are in good shape, while the economy's right, the business is right, you're right. If you wait until the very last minute, you can wind up getting not only amount for your business, but also having a bad experience. So plan for it. There are certainly some emergency succession plans that I've seen between folks in the same industry that basically said, if I kiss the bus tomorrow, you'll buy the business and my widow will get paid, and vice versa. And that's all simple. That's not really a long-term plan, but it's an emergency plan. In a longer-term plan, you want to get top dollar, or you want to get a fair value at least for your company. You need to have it ready right away. You need to know that your financials are clean. If you're 100% owner in a business and you're used to using your business as a playground for tax purposes, stop it. Because even though stop it, or know that it's going to affect your sale, because people won't come in. That will affect your EBITDA. It'll affect your profit margins. It'll affect the way the company runs. And it'll also distort in a lot of ways the way you've been living financially. So I understand the desire to make it your sandbox and your playground. But in general, I think books should be clean.
They should be. I don't doubt that. I like, you got me thinking, but I guess having two sets of books with the IRS is illegal, right?
Yeah, that whole yellow
One
sheet
for tax
idea.
purposes,
Yeah.
and one for sale purposes.
As far as the IRS is concerned, I made no money. As far as my wife's concerned, we had a great year. Like, not a good plan. Not a good plan. I'm not saying pay taxes you don't have to pay. I do think it's especially wise to do tax planning and other financial planning and philanthropy and other things. But have clean books. Know that the books and records are right, because any buyer is going to come in and look at it in a very forensic way. And if they see oddities or irregularities, they're going to question the integrity of the entire operation, not just the P&L. So I think having clean books matters. And usually what I'll say is that means don't do your own QuickBooks, Rocky, hint, hint. It means have somebody else do it. I mean, you can be the second set of eyes, but it's good to have a second set. It's good to have checks and balances. It's good to not, sort of the trust but verify, the Reaganisms. That to me makes some sense.
And the second reason I think to talk to the accountant is, depending on how your corporation is set up and the type of sale it is, has a dramatic impact on the taxability of the sale. There's a
Correct.
whole bunch of different ways of doing this, and it gets complicated. So I'm not even going to offer advice at this point, other than two people can have the exact same sale, and one person can pay a ton of taxes and one person won't pay a ton of taxes. And it's all in how the sale agreement was structured and the whole deal was done. And I think at this point, I don't know that I'd go to your regular CPA, because if they're not used to doing this, they don't know all the nuances of how all of these different sale structures kind of come together. And so you got to make sure you have somebody who knows that, so that when you're going through the negotiation process, you're like, hey, right up front, we expect this, we want that, because the buyer is looking from it from their tax perspective. And they probably have some ideas that you may not have. And so you have to be clear on all of that.
Yep. Well, I agree. And I think having your team of advisors and having folks who really know what they're doing in this space, if you're looking to use a business broker or somebody else to help you sell it, make sure that this is an industry with which they're familiar and that it's in their roundhouse. Have the right lawyer, have the right tax advisor, have the right financial advisor, maybe even have the right benefits coordinator. I mean, there's so many different aspects of this. And if you're one of those business owners who owns your building and you're going to sell the business, but with a long-term lease in the space and all those things, have the right commercial real estate people and title people and everything else, because to skimp on this makes no sense, Rocky, because this is, for business owners, most of the time, this is by far and away our biggest asset. For people who don't own a business, their largest asset is often their home. But for business owners, it's the business.
Yeah, for my clients, we built cash somewhere else with somebody like you. Like we remove cash from the business. We make sure we have big fat retirement or non-retirement assets that
Mm-hmm.
are separate from all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
because at the end of the day, we have a business to build wealth and to have freedom, and you better have some money to show for that. So that's kind of what we do, is big
Yeah.
time.
No, having fruits of your labor is the reason for the labor, no doubt about it. And I do think it's good to diversify away. But I still think, even if you've done a great job with that, even if you've built the cash balance plans and the deferred comp and all the different types of things, all the strategies you can use and put a cash cushion together, and you've done your own personal investing, the sale of a business, particularly if it's the full enterprise, is still likely to be, if not your largest asset, certainly your largest transaction of your lifetime. And for serial entrepreneurs, you might get to do it 8 or 9 times in your life. But most people only do it once. So you got to do it right, because it's not a dress rehearsal and there's no mulligan.
No, that is very true. And if it's the first time you're doing it, you don't know what you're doing. So be careful.
Even if it's the second or third time, you might not know what you're doing, but you definitely don't on the first go round.
That is true. So now you're going into A, and I think a lot of people get enamored by A, but before we hit record, we kind of talked about the other side of A, which is when you're the one selling out and staying, life is usually not very much fun after you sell and you're become an employee.
I don't know very many people who do that well. And I know I couldn't. The idea of selling something that you've put your blood, sweat, and tears into for your whole life, basically, and then punching a clock for somebody else in your own business is Twilight Zone stuff to me. I understand the sell and stay for a limited period. I understand the sell and consult, but to sell and then stay for any meaningful length of time is, to me, a fool's errand, because entrepreneurs are not great employees. Sorry, everyone. You're just not. I am also not a great employee. We're used to doing things not only our way often, whether it's collectively deciding something or just doing it ourselves. We're used to doing it our own way. We're used to having very few roadblocks in terms of business decision making. And when you suddenly have to ask permission for things that you've been doing naturally for your adult life, that's really hard. I think there is a benefit to selling and staying if you still maintain some skin in the game, so long as you understand what your role is going to be and it's defined and it's got some flexibility. That to me is a non-starter. I couldn't imagine it. I'm very interested in selling gradually, and the day I sell my last shares, I expect not to be here at all. And I think it could be a number of years. It could be decades even, because I'm loving what I'm doing. In order to make this affordable for everybody, it's going to take some real time.
What else should we be aware of when it comes to mergers and acquisitions?
Well, first of all, there's always a bigger fish than you. And so I believe you have to find the deals that make sense for you without biting off more than you can chew, and without getting into a bidding war with somebody who's got endless resources. Understanding where you are in that M&A food chain, I think, makes some sense. For us, we get approached by folks who want to buy our company on a near daily basis. I call it bizarre, but it's really not. That's the world we live in now. And while I'm flattered that people are interested in our business and we run a phenomenal organization, right now we see ourselves as buyers, not sellers. And so as buyers, we're looking for folks who are at 1/10 of our size, who want to plug into our systems and ultimately retire or sell and only want to stay for a period of time. So, that 3 years tops. I think beyond that, unless you're coming in designed as a partner, if you're looking to sell, 3 years is probably the very high end of what makes sense, because there can be conflict. For us, we're looking to buy firms that have 50 or $100 million under management. We're at like 800 million. And so that makes sense. The firms looking at buying us are at $4 billion. There's always that next, there's always the gobble the next fish, but culture matters. And I think in our business right now, and a lot of businesses right now, you either have to be small, boutique-y, and have a niche, or you have to be massive. It's very, very tough to be somewhere in the middle right now. And so, this whole middle market concept, you hear people talk about middle market, it means different things to different folks. In some PE firms, middle market is a $500 million firm. And in some, it feels like 5 million or 10 million. To me, being in the middle means that the big ones are trying to figure out how to buy you. The little ones are trying to figure out how to be you. and you sort of get in this chase your tail kind of situation. So we don't want to get so big that we're trying to compete with the giant wirehouses of the world. That's not our desire. We want to maintain scale and scalability. And so for us, the key is capacity planning. We do major league capacity planning. What would the headcount need to be? How many clients can an advisor or an advisory team service adroitly without sacrificing the quality, the high touch, the concierge level experience we want it to be? Because if we ever give that up, we're just another in a long line of firms. We have to maintain not just the integrity of that, the stability and the expectations have to continue to be met that we're going to do it our way. It's going to be the BFG way when we do things. And so far, so good. We've been able to build, we now have 21 people. And for a financial advisory firm, that's pretty big. For a lot of companies, that's nothing. It's a footnote, it's a department. But for financial advisors, that's pretty big. And so we're right in that sweet spot. And so now I'm going up market for education and opportunity and learning, but I'm going down market for opportunity for purchase. And so sort of understanding where we are in that ecosystem, I'm now going to conferences where I'm meeting with people who are in the 5 and 10 and $20 billion shops, because there's a lot I can learn from them, especially since they were at one point where we are. On the other hand, I don't want to sit in that. I'm not buying them. That's not how it works. You know, the little fish rarely eats the big fish. I know little dogs bark at big dogs, but little fish don't eat big fish. It's not happening. So we have to find those targets for acquisition that will be accretive to us, that will be good for profitability without jeopardizing culture and quality. It's a hard thing. It really is. And you can make a lot of mistakes.
Well, I think making mistakes, experimenting is just part of business, right? It's what we do. I would say, though, the little fish can nibble at the big fish. You're not going to buy them, but you can take their clients.
Well, that's different. That we can do all day because we're more nimble than they are. You can't turn a barge. You can sail around that. So yes, we can pick the clients off of those, and we do, because they can't provide the level of attention that we do. So yes, we pull a lot of clients from bigger firms, but in terms of an acquisition or even adding an advisor, it's rare that advisors from those giant shops go to an independent firm unless they're creating their own. It's extremely rare. But ironically, no one goes from, and I say no one like I've never met someone who goes from an independent financial advisory space to working for one of the big wirehouses. People don't leave their own RIA firm or their own independent organization and then roll up into something and be an employee. They just don't do it. They might sell to a larger fish and punch the clock for a year or two, but they're switching their book of business, if you will, their business to some huge organization. It just doesn't happen ever.
And you got to find where you have the right fit, and that's you into the company, whatever it's your company, or, well, in this case, everyone's working for their own company. And then the right fit with clients and how you can be nimble in that market and not be afraid, at least on the sales side, to go up against the big dogs, because you can win against them. You have the nimbleness, you have the better relationship building opportunities. And again, it really depends on who you're going after. You have to have the right particular fit for that.
You can win on culture. You can win on strategy. You can win on collaboration. You can win on merging. You can't win on price. There's almost no way. No. And anybody who wants to sell just for top dollar and doesn't care what happens isn't somebody we'd want anyway. So that's okay. If that's really your game, go for it. But we don't want to talk to you. That's not the end game. But when it comes to quality, when it comes to culture, that we can compete on all day.
And those are the two things that most business owners put off till last: creating culture and creating strategy. They kind of end up on in the rat maze, on wondering how they got to the dead end that they're at.
Yes, corporate whack-a-mole. What's on fire today that I can put out? And let's see when I come in tomorrow what's on fire. Strategy matters. Tactics are good, but strategy matters. Vision matters more, because your strategy should roll up to the vision of the organization, and it can't be your own, and it can't be a secret. It can't be. You have to have buy-in from your whole team that this is where we're headed. We're all rowing in the same direction, where there will ultimately be some conflict, or at least some lack of efficiency, if nothing else.
And that's the key. And you definitely have to figure that out and be intentional. At what point in your business journey did you actually focus, though, on culture and strategy?
Well, I'm a bit of a rare bird. because I started planning as if we were larger when we were tiny. One of my coworkers, who's now a shareholder in the firm, once referred to us as Rinky Dink. That felt good. But I started looking at that very early, even very early in my career, before I even owned a company and I was just practicing within a different organization. I was creating systems and infrastructure and workflows and things that seemed absurd for a sole practitioner, but they've served me over my entire career. And of course, now they're much more sophisticated. They're much more efficient. They're far more technically superior because that's what happens. But the culture mattered right away. I was hiring when I started the business and I started bringing people in. I was hiring mostly on my gut, because I wasn't a hiring manager. I didn't know how to do that. So I was hiring on gut, and I wanted people who would work hard and play hard. You show me somebody with integrity and work ethic and who's fun to be around, and I will show you somebody I can turn into a star. And that's the way I felt. Now we're being a little bit more thoughtful in what we're looking for because we have the infrastructure and the training and the things to do. But ultimately, we still know when somebody walks in the door for an interview, and I don't do a lot of those interviews anymore. But when somebody walks in, is he or she one of us? There's a feel. It's hard to put my finger on it, but it's a feel. This person's going to fit right in with our group, and that's amazing. Or this person's not going to be comfortable here, or there's going to be issues, and so some of it is still instinct. Culture matters more. Culture eats strategy for lunch. It does. If you don't have culture, I don't care how good your strategy is, you're going to lose people, good people. People are going to hate their jobs, hate their work. Life's too short, especially for you. If I hated my work, I'd be leaving in a very different way. Right now, I love my work, and I'm not going anywhere until they send me out kicking and screaming. We'll see.
And the reality is, all those red flags show up, and too often we're just too busy trying to put out fires that we hire people we shouldn't, and then it's difficult to let them go, and those are very costly mistakes. And at the end of the day, business is supposed to be fun. You went into business to have fun. If you're not having fun, check the mirror, right?
Yeah. No, and that's not to suggest that every day is unicorns and spit bubbles. It's not. But you have to love what you're doing. This can't feel like a grind all the time. First of all, we won't live very long. I don't want to be a 50-something-year-old cardiac arrest waiting to happen. I'll pass. I want to make sure this is fun. I want to make sure it's empowering to our employees, to our clients, to even our vendors. I want to have a good time with everybody we work with, or we'll find somebody else.
And you can always find somebody else.
Always.
If people would like to learn more about the services you offer, or get in touch with you, or check out the books, how do they do that?
The website for the company is bfgfa.com. That's BFG Financial Advisors. And if you're interested in the book or workbooks or any of our resources, some of which are free, you can go to brotmanmedia.com and find a whole bunch of information, podcasts and white papers. And there's a university and a library and all kinds of stuff in there. So if you want to know more about us, that's a great place to start.
Awesome. We'll put that all in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Rocky, it's always a pleasure. It was great meeting you in person a couple months ago, and good to see you again online today.
Hey, thanks for listening to the entire unedited video of the Profit Answer Man podcast. You can actually get the full podcast in audio only format here on YouTube or any other of your favorite podcast players. Don't forget to go check out episodes 1 through 13. They lay out the foundation of Profit First in the book and how to get started. In addition, we've got hundreds of episodes for you to check out. And if you remember to subscribe, you'll always be updated when we put a new one out every single week. Thanks for listening. Have a profitable week.